What's up, Lore Masters? In the last few episodes, we discussed how the Romulans were very aggressive with an enemy they didn't know. Once they discovered they couldn't defeat the Dominion using their tried and true tricks, they opted to sit back and let the Alpha and Beta quadrants slip into war with itself. Now, what the Romulans ultimately planned to do during the war, if they intended to enter into it or just let the best man win, we may never know. I've given my theories on what I thought the Romulans were up to, but irregardless of what the actual result would have been, the Romulans were quote-unquote tricked into the war, and the Federation would instantly begin sending wave after wave of Romulan soldiers to their death. But even before this, the Star Empire's fate may have already been sealed. The fragile nature of Romulus's infrastructure and the reliance on the Tal Shiar secret police ultimately meant that Romulan autonomy was likely all but lost at the Battle of the Omarion Nebula. Just to give a refresher on what happened there, a Tal Shiar and Obsidian Order alliance failed to genocide the founders, instead falling into a trap that would obliterate the Order itself and cripple the Tal Shiar. This made it easy for the secret police's, we'll call them counterparts in the Alpha and Beta quadrants, to co-opt the organization and either take control of it completely or be able to observe it heavily. In essence, before we even have the Romulans enter into the war, they're already beginning to be used as puppets. This, of course, is seen firmly in the DS9 episode, Inter Arma Inem Silent Legis. But let me pause before we get into that. If I can deviate for a second, and I know I'm deviating a lot here, so thank you for your patience, but after seeing the first scene of that episode, I'm almost becoming convinced that Garrick was in league with Section 31. The very first thing we see in this scene is very compelling. At the beginning of the episode, we observe Bashir being pumped for information by Garrick. Where is Bashir going? What is he doing? Who is he meeting? Garrick even brings up the fact that Starfleet should be sending intelligence agents to watch on what is going on Romulus. Bashir balks at this, of course, and Garrick pretends to be upset that Bashir is so naive. But after all of this is done, what do we see next? What happens in the very next scene? Arguably, this happens that night, given how the transition works. Ultimately, Bashir is visited by Sloan. Is it possible that Garrick tipped off the Section 31 agent? It's definitely convenient how all of this happens. If you haven't, get caught up on my Dominion War playlist, because I'll be going way down this rabbit hole in that series in the very near future. Anyway, focusing on the Romulans, as I've discussed, while they may seem like a large impending threat, to a degree, the Romulans are really now just a paper tiger. Their economic and industrial infrastructure is still intact, true. They are able to recruit fresh soldiers, and Romulan shipbuilding is at its peak performance, but the people beneath the Raptor's wings are completely helpless against other intelligence agencies and those who wish to do them harm. As we've kind of discussed, this occurrence was an eventuality that was always going to happen. The leaders of the Romulans were authoritarian to a fault, and they overutilized the Tal Shiar to enact their will. They would minimize or even kill loyal Ryansu soldiers and citizens to ensure their power was unchecked. This policy and way of life became the standard, and so when the Tal Shiar are weakened, the authoritarian elite are left vulnerable. And those who are loyal to the Romulan people wouldn't have an easy way of helping protect Romulus or the values of the Romulan people. And all of this can be seen in the fates of Senator Kretak and the head of the Tal Shiar, Koval. Kretak, a real patriot and one who doesn't necessarily want the destruction of the Federation, but is loyal to her people, and Koval, an intelligence mole that has betrayed his people for the Federation. Section 31 would trick Bashir into believing that an assassination attempt was going to occur against Koval. The Doctor then convinces Senator Kretak to assist him. Even though Bashir was possibly an enemy of Kretak, she would work with the Doctor to try and expose the traitor. Unfortunately, the ruse would cause Kretak to work behind the backs of those she trusted, and she would be found guilty of treason. This meant that she would either be imprisoned and possibly murdered. The Tal Shiar would be broken, and no one would know it except for Starfleet intelligence and that of Section 31. It's interesting because due to Star Trek Picard, many state that it was the destruction of a star, the star going Nova, that destroyed the Romulan Star Empire. I'd honestly counter this that the Empire had been fractured and destroyed long before that. It really began with an authoritarian government unwilling to change and the Dominion helping to ensure the Federation would be able to manipulate them for the ends of Starfleet. But all of these are my opinions. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.